Hello and welcome to Cure for the Soul. I believe that my microphone is working today. Not sure what was going on last week, but nonetheless, I am here with you today and God is good. Put a one in the chat if you're with me and can hear me. If you're doing the chat, sometimes people just watch and don't do the chats, but it looks like my microphone levels are fine and I'm not sharing a screen, which messed it up on last week. But again, nonetheless, I am here. Welcome to Cure for the Soul. If you are returning, thank you so much for your loyalty. If this is your first time, good morning. He put a one in the chat. If this is your first time, thank you so much for joining. This is Cure for the Soul. I'm LaTanya R. Quinn, the Soul Coach. I'm a Christ follower, an author now, and an artist. I help Christians to build profitable, purpose-driven businesses that thrive and align with biblical principles without unwise compromise by assisting them to prioritize spiritual growth and soul healthy lives. So if you're looking to optimize your life and business, please stick around and subscribe. Okay, so I wanted to discuss this topic today because sometimes, especially for us over 40, we can think that we're too old for something. I just have to kind of stay here and take it. I have to stay at this job. I have to retire from this place. And that may not be what God has for you. What many don't understand is that 40 years old, I believe that if God allows you to make it to 40, you're just really beginning to truly understand what life is about. You have decades now to compare your life against. You could go back to your teen years when we were teens, right? We wanted to be grown adults. And then when we became grown adults, we were in our 20s and we felt we had to rush. We had to get it and we had to do this and we had to do that. And a lot of us were confused. A lot of times we go into college, we get pushed and thrust into real life because we're quote unquote grown adults. And although we've been given some tools, depending on how our upbringing had been, we've been given some tools to kind of navigate life, but we're kind of still figuring life out in our 20s. And if we're growing and we get to 30, and we're growing in wisdom and we're taking those experiences and learning from those experiences, then we're around 30 and we're like, okay, I'm grown now. The people that are still in their 20s, they don't know anything. I'm 30 and I have it all figured out. But baby, it's when we get to 40, and especially those that are blessed to be at 50 and over, it's not until you really get to 40 where you realize you didn't know anything. You thought you were doing the thing and you realized that you did not know anything. So if you're over 40 and you believe that God is calling you to leave your 9 to 5, I want you to listen up because this may be the right time and the prime time to be alive and to live out your purpose in which God created you for. Okay, so if any of you have been with me anytime and you know from my business background or just my life, when I say even at my last employer, I believe that God was shifting me to move out of my 9 to 5. But I wasn't certain because I was in a new state, a new season of my life. And I had just started to really get a handle on my life and to get so aligned with the Lord where things were starting to just flow. And then when COVID and everything happened, I thought that we were going to be forced out to have to vaccinate. So God was preparing me for a move, I believed, for that reason. So when all of that blowed over, and then we ended up keeping our jobs, most of us, and we didn't get forced out, my company that I worked for had an acquisition where the company that originally started them, which was the Home Depot, the division in which I worked for was a business to business division that only handled certain verticals. And when that merger and acquisition was complete, I started to feel like, okay, well, maybe God did not want me to leave. And now I can just start back looking at houses again. Maybe I could just start back doing the regular go. It's kind of something just happened. Okay, now I'm starting to see. So there is a technical issue. Something just happened where I just moved off the screen without pushing any buttons. So I'm gonna stay vigilant, and you all pray for me as well, because these technical issues. When there's a message in the music, as my mom says, there's a message in the music, and there is a divine message that I attempted to get out with this same topic last week, that I am here to deliver today. So we're going to pray over this technical stuff, you all, because I've already done it last night and I'm doing it now. But no, like you all said, hey, Sister Shireen, no, I did not get vaccinated, and I was going to stand on it, and I was willing to get let go and fired for the sake, and I was going to trust God not to give in to that due to keeping a job, because at the end of the day, this is the message I want to drill home to us that are seeking, us that are thinking. God is our provider, correct? If you believe that, put that in the comments. Philippians 4:19. My God, he's not just my God, he's your God. My God shall supply all of your need according to his riches and glory. I don't see the word employer there. I don't see the word me there. I don't see in that text of scripture where it says, my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory. I don't see anything about me, like, oh, my goodness, or my talents and my gifts is doing all this supplying. And it doesn't say that your employer shall supply all of your need. So with that being said, no, I didn't end up taking the vaccine. So I believe that everything was okay. I was starting back to just, hey, regular life, new goals. I'm going to go ahead and get me a house and just live a regular life, right? And God allowed turbulence to occur for about 90 days. And the turbulence just felt to be so out of left field, because it was things happening in my role, things I was starting to be accused of, and it started coming down from weird places in different places, people that I had never even had a meeting with face to face in my territory, where it was just a lot of things that just did not make sense. So I went and did some stuff with going to HR about it, and then it died down. And then in late February, around this same time where this enemy does not want this message to get out, around this same exact time, things started to get very, very crazy. And I asked the Lord, and I have this story in my book. I give a long story about my entrepreneurship journey in my book, The Acceleration Cure. And I said, God, do you want me to stay and faith this out? And I know in my spirit, he said, no. So on 3/7, and we know that numbers are significant to God, 3 and 7, I resigned from my role 3 years ago. And this had been after a journey of me of constantly needing to go back to a 9 to 5, go back to a regular life, or thrive as a business owner. I had to go through this up and down, knowing that at the beginning, God put business in my heart, but I didn't never have a stable blueprint. Although my parents had businesses here and there, they were not stable blueprints for me to say, okay, I have generations that can teach me how to run a business. So I've spent the last 25 plus years teeter-tottering in between a 9 to 5 and working for myself as a single woman, knowing in my heart that business has always been in my heart, but that Philippians 4:19 of God supplying all your need. And in my book, The Acceleration Cure, I go through this whole journey and I tell you the things that I missed along that way that finally put me in alignment with what I'm sharing with you today about leaving your 9 to 5 and truly trusting in the Lord instead of running back to that 9 to 5 so that He can supply all your need. I am living proof. This is my testimony for the last 3 years. So let's look at a couple of things that may have you feeling like God may be calling me to leave my 9 to 5, and I'm over 40. I'm afraid. I don't have a big savings. I don't have retirement. I don't know what's going on, but I believe that God is calling me to do something. So let's shift our perspective here. You keep researching or needing to get a new job every 2 to 4 years. For some apparent reason, the industry you're in, there's no opportunity for you to really move up and level up in that role or to see yourself in that role long term. So, for some reason, just because the industry you're in, this happens in sales a lot in the industry that I was in. People move around into different sales careers. Often, they want to do account management for this type of role. They want to do this type of sales, tech sales, whatever it may be. They move around a lot in the industry. So it's 2 to 4 years. Sometimes on average, they're looking for a new job. Another one may be that you just got laid off, or you got something going on where, it just doesn't feel right now. My life just doesn't feel right. And I know that God is tugging on my spirit about something, but I just don't know. And I'm thinking about a business. Sometimes I'm thinking about this. I think about how it would be if I was a full-time author, publisher, content creator, business owner in whatever capacity, personal trainer, architect, consultant, whatever that may be. You think about it often. Well, I did have a client that took my program, Dream Big Goals, and he started on the program right before he got laid off. So this was divine alignment. This was perfect timing. So by the time he got laid off, he was able to walk right into his purpose-driven business, and he has not looked back since. Now, when we walk into these purpose-driven businesses and we're leaving these 9 to 5s, that doesn't mean that things are going to be perfect. And we already know that when we walk with the Lord, it's not a straight path. It's more of a up and down hill, right? It's like moving up and down. It's a hill, and as soon as you think you found your balance, and it's almost like walking on a tightrope, right? It's like when we look back when we used to go to the was it Barnum and Bailey circuses, and we see them walking the tightrope, and sometimes the rope can do a little dip or just whatever. That's what it feels like in my life since I've been knowing the Lord. Like, there is very little comfort in any season of my life for me to stay in a comfort zone, because God knocks me out of that comfort zone a lot. Now, I don't know how it is for my parents out there that, believe, depending on the call that God has on your life, He'd have you to be a lot more stable while you're raising children, and there may not be as much turbulence. But for me, as a single woman, especially anyone that has a dream, trying to build a business, my life has been so, so turbulent. So I think that I qualify to be able to share with you that side of literally what it's like to leave the 9 to 5. So if you're always thinking about working for yourself and then you kind of feel like you're feeling like you're settling at every job you're in, because you always have this feeling and you always have this desire to just step out and just finally stay out of the 9 to 5 to build your business, then God may be nudging you right now to leave your 9 to 5. So with that being said, Hebrews 11:6 tells us, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Now, this is a key component because, for one, our saving faith, we have to believe that he exists. And then after we've come into the family of believers, our role is to diligently seek God. So that means diligently coming to God and say, God, I'm having these thoughts. I'm having these things about me wanting to be a full-time entrepreneur. Sit down and unpack every thought with the Lord. He will give you an answer. I can guarantee that whenever you come to him and you diligently seek him, and as you're reading the word of God, he will start to show you things in the word of God while he's talking to you. So things are possible, not because we have an employer. And although I always thank God for the companies and the risk takers, the entrepreneurs, even the government jobs that they have provided to care for us, to care for our needs. God gave us those jobs. We don't want to despise any job that God has given us to use as a tool to strengthen us and to sustain us and to grow us, to train us. We have to be trained somewhere. If we're going to be an entrepreneur, we have to learn how to serve and to be trained somewhere. So thank God for the jobs that have allowed for us to go through training. So I want you to ask yourself, is anything too hard for the Lord? And this is a question. This didn't come from me. This came from the scriptures. This came from after Sarah laughed. When Jesus came to visit with the 2 angels, we see that there's 3 visitors, but we realize that one of them, the angel of the Lord, is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ spoke with Abraham and told him by this time next year, you will have a son. And Sarah laughed. And I don't believe that she laughed just like, oh, this is just, it possibly was a laugh of doubt and a laugh of, wow, out of all this time after I'm old. So let me just read and share the scriptures so that we can look at it together. Hey, Sister Joe, welcome. Okay. All right. And if you can see the screen, so let's just read it together. Let's see. Starting at verse 10. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I have this pleasure? Then the Lord said to Abraham, why does Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. So, my brothers and my sisters. Hi, Angela. So, my brothers and my sisters, we just went through that passage of text together. And we know that Abraham had this promise from God. And God came all the way from heaven to deliver on his word because he does not renege on his word. He places his word higher than his name. And we know that his name is everything. There's healing in his name. There's power in his name. And although I'm not telling you or me to put our trust in putting ourselves in that text, but there's a million other things that we can look back on our lives about and see that God has asked us that same question in our unique ways, in our ways of our challenges, the things that we had to endure in our life and in our business. And we have a track record for our own lives where we can see God asking us, is anything too hard for the Lord? Now, I can see why Sarah would have laughed because this looks impossible. She's 89. Abraham's 100, nearly 100 years old. And a year from now, I'm going to finally bear a child. And we know from the ancient culture, when it came to childbearing, this was a hard thing to bear for women in ancient times. To be able to produce an offspring and have a womb that appeared to be dead and closed up, that was the woman's thing. For her to be able to bear a child and have offspring, that was a blessing. We could see how it disturbed Hannah, how much she really wanted a child. And we can see even incidences in the Bible, or how God is the one who opens and closes wombs. You all know my story. Some of you may know I am over 40, closer to 50 than I am 40. And I have never been pregnant, and I have never had a child, obviously, if I've never been pregnant. Now, the women in my family have been fertile. My siblings, my family, they've had children as teenagers. And then by the time I got 21 or so, I thought, then what's wrong with me? I was going to try to have a child out of wedlock because I felt I was still behind. And then I felt that at least by the time I'm 30 or 40, at least 40, and I still have not ever been pregnant. I didn't know that that was going to come out today, but God uses everything. And although I'm okay with that now, I'm not looking to have a child at 40, at 50, because I'd have to be like in a relationship or in a marriage at least, and I'm already 48, closer to 49 or 50, right? And people still come and say, oh, I know someone that was 50 years old and they had a child. But look, I'm over that. Like, I'm not looking at this stage to have a child. I'm just not. So I can imagine being 89 years old. And although they live longer than us then, but just saying, are you serious? I'm old. And I'm going to have like a newborn, like not an adopted child that comes older, like a 10-year-old, a teenager. I'm going to give birth in my body to an infant, like a new baby. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Y'all may laugh at me one day. I may be 50 and have a baby. Who knows? It will be a laugh. That's the point I'm trying to make. when something seems impossible to us, or we're thinking that I've been working this 9 to 5 job for so long, I've been in this role for so long, I am 40 plus years old. What can the Lord do with my life at 40 plus years old? Well, he can do a lot, because as I stated in the beginning of the video, anyone that is over 40 years old can look back over their lives and see how their lives were played out in decades. You can take the decades and look at them as if they were chapters in your life. And we thought we knew it all at 20, when we couldn't wait to escape our parents' home. And then we get out in this real world and it's a struggle. We get pushed into college, we get pushed in jobs, and we're stuck in these jobs that we started with, some of us, since we were in our 20s, because we thought, or we believe, that that is the best that we can do. So we stop owning our skills, we stop learning, we stop developing, we stop reading books. We just looked at other people doing these faith-driven things as if that's something that God only wants them to do. But when you're around 40, he starts to really shake up your life and move you into areas of your life that you would have never thought possible, the unimaginable. It's possible to have a whole nother life, a whole new beginning after 40 years old. So if God is pressing on your heart in some sort of way and saying, hey, you believe he's saying to leave this job? Yeah, you're close to retirement. It doesn't mean leave right now. It doesn't mean that you're leaving right now. But the God I know, just like he came to Abraham and Sarah, that he came from heaven to deliver a year from now. Around this time next year, you will have a son. The God I serve, when I look back over my life, and especially as I'm walking on this faith path 3 years post resigning from my last job, God always gives us a heads up 9 times out of 10. I had a 2-year heads up before I left my job. 2 years of planning, of writing plans, saving, paying off debt, listening to the Lord. Now, again, he doesn't always just say, hey, I'm going to tell you to do this or do that, but you feel his nudges in your spirit. And as you're reading the word, and as you're looking at content and jumping in on content like this, and you're hearing little things that are confirming the word that he has placed in your heart. I'm here to tell you and to encourage you, to let you know that you can have a whole new beginning at 45, at 55, even at 60. We know of the people that have started, they've never worked out as much in their life, and now they're 65 years old, and they have a body that a 30-year-old would kill for, because they're working out and they're health driven, but their life wasn't like that. They found a new life at 65. They found new purpose. And I truly believe that over 40 is the prime time of us living for the Lord. We have a made up mind at 40. We're tired of playing the games. We're tired of going back and forth, doing it our way. It's the prime time to surrender and hear the Lord say, this is the way, walk in it. And obedience is everything. Obedience and obeying the voice of the Lord and the command of the Lord is everything. Because think back over your lives. I want you to really do this. Just think back over your life, or just think back over the last month or so. Think about a time where you didn't feel like doing something, but you did it anyway. And along that path, there was someone along that path that you had to encourage. You either had to share the gospel with this person, or because you intersected that individual at the appointed time, there was something there for you to do for the Lord. I'm here to tell you, because I left my 9 to 5 3 years ago on 3/7, God had something appointed for me. Because I was obedient to do the things that I had already been doing, the things that He had already told me to do, I continued to listen to Him. And as I did one thing, and I was faithful over that, and I did another thing, and I was faithful over that. And what I mean by faithful is faithfully serving the Lord. Not faithfully jumping on YouTube just to say I'm trying to get my numbers up. Not faithfully, just being in a house with your spouse and not serving your spouse. No, faithfully serving the Lord so that you can serve those that He placed in your path. And when we're faithfully serving the Lord first and foremost, when we're obedient with the one thing, He can begin to move us into the next thing. Because obedience begets more obedience, and obedience begets more responsibilities. So if you're not responsible with the little, and if you're not serving the Lord with what you have, that means serving Him wholeheartedly now, serving your family, because your first ministry is in the house, serving at your 9 to 5 to the best of your ability. I'm going to throw a joke in here. Elon Musk sent out the email. He sent out the email to the federal employees to do a pulse check and just said, hey, reply back with the 5 things you did at work last week. And for some apparent reason, there's a lot of discrepancy. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of concern about someone asking, what did you do last week? 5 things. You only need to list 5 things. And I'm almost certain that I can assure you that everyone on this live today can tell me 5 things they did this morning. Now, if we're going to work somewhere and we're hired to be an employee somewhere, I am certain out of 40 hours, even if you're working part-time, I am certain that you could tell me I reconciled the books. I had a meeting with my team. I resolved these particular issues for these customers. I wrote out some new code. I worked on technical support. I met with some customers or some clients on Zoom. Like me being in sales, we had to constantly log notes. And I'm sure even with the jobs that you all had, you probably have to log notes. You probably are working on a project planning software that mirrors what's going on within the company, and teams are working together to get these things updated. I'm sure that we all can give an account. We could give an account for 5 things that we did at work last week. So with that being said, if we are of the ones, and I'm sure that we're not on this particular day, if we are of the ones that cannot give a report for what we did last week, I can assure you that God is not calling you out of your 9 to 5. And if He's calling you out of the 9 to 5, it is not to create a purpose-driven business. Because if you're not working at your 9 to 5, He's not calling you out to work for Him. And I say that with love. I say that with truth. If you are hiding behind the computer screen and putting up something that shakes your mouse every 5 minutes so that you could either work another job while you're hired to work this one, I can assure you that your heart and your soul needs cured. I can assure you that there is something in this book that I've written that will show you that there's some misalignment. And I could say that because I have not always been the best testimony for the God that I claim. If I knew better, being an entrepreneur and having all of this stuff going on, over 28 things that were keeping me from a life of being in a purpose-driven business and prospering in a purpose-driven business, I could say that because I've been there. I haven't always been who I am today. It is because of the grace of the living God that I am here and I am able to let you know that I have finally gotten to a point in my Christian walk with the Lord where I am faithful. And because I have been tested after loss, I have been tested so many times after God had to rescue me. I had to be trusted again. And it wasn't until I came to Dallas 7 years ago almost to start my life over that God began to remove me from a 10-year valley that I was in struggling, even with my businesses. And I'm here to tell you that if you lean and depend on the Lord and you desire to clean your life up, a purpose-driven business does await after 40. He can take all of those years where we did not do the right things. He could take all of those desires where you're desiring to truly build a business and not have to keep going back to an employer to rescue you. Because at the end of the day, right? Who is our provider? I love to stress that in this business that I have, Cure for the Soul, because until we're tested in that area multiple times, we will struggle to still think that we're responsible for our bills. Well, I'm responsible to God for what I do. So I sit with God and I go over my finances, I go over my concerns, we go over business ideas. I pray to Him about very specific things, very specific matters, and we've been working through them. Now, after I left my job, I will tell you this, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I wasn't leaving my job believing that I'm about to start a new business. I was not going to put my hands on another business that God was going to take away from me. That's what I also want to share with you. It wasn't until a year almost, or maybe about 9 months, that I really started getting back on the business side. Because I wasn't just going to start nothing just to start something again. And then God's like, okay, well, yep, I'm not going to let you have this one to prosper. And then after I started doing some things that I believe He was telling me to do, which He did confirm, it took another year for me to walk into my purpose. It took a year, a year and a half, I would say, after leaving my 9 to 5 for me to discover my purpose. I didn't find it because it's concealed until it's revealed. And it's not going to come into fruition until we're doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, until we're passing our tests, until we're leveling up. So I want to ask you, if you believe that God is calling you away from your 9 to 5 and you are fearful and you are worried about your finances, it's natural for you to feel that way. But I must remind you, but the righteous are bold as lions And God has no pleasure in those that shrink back. Why? Because the righteous live by faith. We don't live like everyone else. We're set apart, we're sanctified to live by faith. The righteous live by faith. We don't practice faith here and there. We don't jump in and out of faith. We live by faith. And that means that we have to trust in the Lord with everything, all our heart. We have to trust in the Lord with all our heart. Why are we so adamant about preserving something and letting go of something when God has something better on the other side? Why are we so adamant to hold on to Egypt when there's a promised land ahead? Yeah, we have to go through some valleys, some wilderness, some testing. But I can assure you that when we have been tempered and tested, like that diamond that has to be refined, on the other side, there's nothing better than arriving at the destination that God has predestined you for. So I want you to ask yourself, is anything too hard for the Lord? If he can make something out of nothing, if he can create the world and everything in it in 6 days and still rest, if he can keep you alive like he's doing, even though our bodies are wasting away, if he can do the things that he is doing, look at your friends, look at your family. We're breathing now. Who's keeping the breath in us? Is it the employer? Who's keeping the breath in our bodies? Who's keeping us alive? Who's allowing me to teach or to talk to you and to fellowship with you right now on this live stream? Is it me? Or is it God? How are the bills paid here 3 years later? Paid on time. Credit score still well over 750. Credit still good. Things are in good standing. Everything's paid on time. Still able to buy things I like. Still able to do things I like 3 years later. Now, mind you, when I came here, I had nothing. I had a lot of debt 7 years ago. So I spent about 18 months paying off all of my debt when I first got here. So it's like the oil that never runs out that you're going to be able to see in your life when you obey God to pivot from your 9 to 5. Is anything too hard for the Lord? If you are a Christian visionary and you are looking for some assistance and you want more help like this, I'm going to lay out what I did. I'm going to lay out my plan, and I'm going to give you some encouragement on my masterclass, Pivot from the 9 to 5. And I'm doing that on Saturday, March the 8th. I'm going to share this here. So I have a masterclass coming up called Pivot from the 9 to 5. And you could go on the link in the description section and you can sign up from there. It's called Pivot from the 9 to 5. And if you are one, and I'll put it in the chat as well, if you want to know more and you want some hands-on information, just more in-depth information, I'll say, about what it's going to look like leaving your 9 to 5, trusting the Lord, living by faith, please sign up. It's Saturday, March 8th at 9 a.m. And if this isn't the event for you, you could still sign up for future events and you'll just be on the list. because I have events that I'm doing, virtual events on different topics that are pertaining to Christians that are business owners, Christian creatives, content creators, entrepreneurs, authors, people that love God, that have a business idea. You're in leadership. You want to do more than the 9 to 5. And I'm going to tell you that faith is hard. Faith is hard. It's very hard. Living by faith is hard. Living by faith is hard. But at the same time, it's so rewarding. At the same time, trusting God, when you put that resignation paper in, when you put that notice to leave into your employer and you walk away by faith, and you trust that God has you in his hand, and you're trusting him with every area of your life. When you trust him with your finances, because where our heart is, where our treasure is, that's where our heart is, right? So if you're giving up your life to him in the area of your finances, there is absolutely nothing the Lord won't do for you. And you do not have to fear. And yes, it will get a little scary sometimes, I must admit. But he's going to use another means to show you how he provides. Just like he uses the means of an employer at a 9 to 5, he's going to show you how he provides through another vehicle or another way for your business. And you're going to need to know what I'm going to share with you, because what most people don't share with you as a Christian, everybody's path is never the same. And there are some unique things that Christians experience that are going to be different from somebody else that just quit their job. And I'm going to share those on my masterclass. There's a way that we have to adapt to moving out of the 9 to 5, because there may be a drought after leaving that 9 to 5. We hear so many stories, so many people get up here and make their content. When I left my job, my first year was 6 figures. May not be like that for you. He may still need to get some of the impurities out of you for 12 months. He may need to still get your heart right and your soul right for another 18 months. What most people also do not tell you is that being a business owner is a long game. See, we're all in this, oh, hurry up and make a YouTube channel. Hurry up and do this. Just put a website out. Just start this. Just hurry up and write a book. It takes 3 to 5 years to really build a business that's going to last. And even when you hit the 5-year marker, there's still no guarantee. So it's what you do with your time within that first 3 years. So if you're building that business at a 9 to 5 on the side, you're getting yourself in a position for a head start. But for me, I didn't even know my purpose. It would have just been another business. There's a difference between just having a business than a purpose-driven business that God made you for. So I want to discuss that with you on that 9 to 5 pivot from the 9 to 5 masterclass. So I'm going to go over some of your comments. Thank you so much for sticking here. If you're just joining, thank you so much for coming in, but you will want to go to the beginning just to do a replay. And I'm going to go through some of your comments, and thank you so much for encouraging me by just, being here and just listening to what the Lord has placed in my spirit. Okay, let me move this thing off my screen because let's see. Take that off. Okay. Hey, Shireen. She said LaTanya's master classes are awesome. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Thank you. Thank you so much for that shout out. Okay, let me pull up the chat here. Angela said, God is faithful, always on time. Yes, he is. God is so faithful. Yes, Sister Christina says, nothing is impossible for him. And that's the message. We have to remember in general, not just from hearing it from me, we have to lean on the Lord's word. Nothing. Providing for what? How much is your mortgage? How much is your rent? How much is your mortgage, your rent? 1,500, 2,000, 2,500? Nothing is too hard for the Lord. Sometimes it can feel really hard when we're not in a position of living by faith. If we're not truly in a position of just trusting him, saying, I'm putting it all in your hands, Lord. I'm going to trust you no matter what. It will feel harder than it has to be because faith, living by faith, is tough. A lot of times it feels like things are dying before they start to live. You know, the seed does have to die before it can live and multiply, right? So it will feel like that's not what God is asking you to do. But you have to continue to trust him because nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. Yes. Good morning. Good morning, Christina. Good morning, Angela. Let's see. People went crazy. Yeah, people went crazy on something simple, just as simple as saying, what did you do at your job last week? I'm sure, again, all of you can put something in the chat and tell me exactly what you did this morning. And I know you could tell me what work you did if you're getting paid. Like, I can tell God what I did because not only do I keep it in my Dream Big Goals setting guide and planner, but I keep what I'm doing in multiple places. So nope, I always say I don't want to be Elizabeth being married and pregnant. Right. Oh, right. Like we've already look, people be like, oh, you still have time to have a baby. Such and such is 52 and they just had a baby. Then why are you telling me this? I'm not even married yet. Like, I'm divorced. I mean, why are you I'm not over here hoping for a newborn at my age anymore. Now maybe some people may be, but me and Shireen we're not. So let's see. I'm in that same boat. Yeah. We're talking about the same thing. So if you all have any questions, good morning to you as well, Chess. If you all have any questions or any comments, I'll answer them. If not, I'll go ahead and jump out of here and I'll let you all get along with the rest of your day. I pray that your Thursday, well, we're almost at the weekend, but I pray that your day is blessed. And I pray that you got something out of this content today. Please share it with a friend if you have. Thank you so much again for your time spending it with me. If this video has blessed you or resonated with you in any type of way, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. God willing, I will see you on the next one.